I used to be a nanny for my sister-in-law, but when I stopped looking after the children, she filed a complaint against me. For the past 2 years, Maya, 33F, had been the go-to babysitter for my sister-in-law, Clara, 38F. She had 2 kids, Ethan, 5M, and Sophie, 3F, who I absolutely adored. Despite my complicated relationship with Clara, I loved spending time with them. When Ethan was a baby, I'd rock him to sleep while Clara ran errands. As Sophie got older, I'd help her with arts and crafts, play dress-up, and read her bedtime stories. I didn't have kids of my own, but spending time with them made me feel like a second mother. It started as an occasional favor. Clara had a busy job and an even busier social life. Whenever she needed a last-minute sitter, I was the first person she'd call. And for a while, I didn't mind. Then, without me realizing it, babysitting became less of a favor and more of an expectation. At first, it was 1 or 2 evenings a week. Then weekends. Then full days when she had important things to do. There were times when she dropped the kids off at my house without even asking, just assuming I was available. And, like an idiot, I let it happen. I wanted to be a good aunt. I didn't want to be that family member, the one who refuses to help out. So, I told myself that I was just being supportive. But the truth was, I was being taken advantage of. Then, a few months ago, everything changed. I was diagnosed with a chronic illness. The symptoms hit me hard: extreme fatigue, chronic pain, and a complete loss of energy. Simple things like making breakfast or taking a shower drained me to the point where I needed to lie down afterward. I had to adjust my entire lifestyle. The doctor's words were clear: you need to reduce stress. You can't keep pushing yourself like this. I ignored it at first. I thought I could just power through it. But my body had other plans. There were days when just getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. I knew I couldn't keep up with babysitting anymore. So, I did what I thought was the responsible thing. I sat Clara down and explained everything. I told her about my condition, about how exhausted I was, about how I needed to focus on my health. I wasn't asking for sympathy, I just needed her to understand that I couldn't babysit regularly anymore. Her response? "What do you even do all day?" I was stunned. She looked me dead in the eye and told me that watching her kids wasn't hard work and that I was being selfish. Selfish. Because I wasn't willing to run myself into the ground for her. I tried to stay calm. I explained again. But arguing with Clara is like arguing with a brick wall. She refused to listen. She dismissed my condition like it was a minor inconvenience instead of a serious medical issue. "It's not like I'm asking you to do anything difficult," she said. "You just sit there while the kids play. What's so exhausting about that?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I should have walked away right then and there. But I still felt guilty. I kept thinking about Ethan and Sophie. What if they missed me? What if they thought I abandoned them? So, for a while, I wavered. I told myself that maybe I could help out a little. Maybe I was being too dramatic about my condition. But then I'd remember the pain, how I felt when I pushed myself too hard. And I knew I had to stand my ground. Clara didn't take it well. She pouted. She sulked. She sent me passive-aggressive texts about how she didn't know what to do without my help. I ignored her. I thought she'd eventually drop it and find another babysitter. But I was so wrong. A month later, my husband and I were invited to a family dinner at my in-laws' house. I wasn't exactly excited to go. I hadn't seen Clara since our last conversation, and I knew she was still holding a grudge. But it was a family dinner, and I didn't want to make things awkward. So, I went. Big mistake. From the moment we walked in, I could feel the tension. Clara greeted me with this smug little smile, the kind that made me instantly nervous. We all sat down to eat, and for a while, everything seemed fine. Then, out of nowhere, Clara turned to me and said, "So, Maya, are you still too sick to help with the kids, or was that just an excuse because you're lazy?" The room went silent. I felt my face burning. I hadn't even told most of my family members about my condition. Now, Clara had just put me on the spot in front of everyone. I took a deep breath. "I already explained this to you, Clara. My health isn't an excuse." She rolled her eyes. "Maybe babysitting would do you some good," she said. "Get you out of the house. Get you moving." She laughed like she had just said something hilarious. The rest of the family exchanged uncomfortable glances. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her out for the selfish, inconsiderate person she was. But I didn't want to cause a scene. Before I could say anything, my husband spoke up. "Clara, that's enough. You don't get to talk to Maya like that." His voice was calm but firm. Clara scoffed. "I don't see why this is such a big deal. It's just babysitting." I had had enough. I forced a smile and said, "Clara, I've already told you my boundaries. If you don't understand that, then maybe we just need to leave it at that." She glared at me. For the rest of the night, she barely spoke to me. But I could tell something was brewing in her mind. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought that was the end. But I had no idea what was coming next. Because Clara wasn't just mad. She wanted revenge. And she was about to take things to a whole new level. A few days after that disastrous family dinner, I was finally starting to feel at peace again. I hadn't heard much from Clara since that night. No snide comments. No guilt-tripping messages. Just silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally given up. I was wrong. One evening, I was at home, curled up on the couch, exhausted after a long day. My energy levels had been at an all-time low, and even the simplest tasks felt overwhelming. That's when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I slowly got up, dragging my aching body toward the entrance. When I opened the door, my heart stopped. A police officer was standing on my doorstep. At first, I thought maybe there had been a mistake. Then, he said something that made my stomach drop. "Ma'am, we're following up on a theft report. We received a complaint that you stole money from Clara Sullivan's home." I was speechless. Clara had actually filed a police report against me. I couldn't even process what I was hearing. Stealing? Me? I barely even went to her house anymore. The officer was calm, but I could tell he was watching me closely, waiting for a reaction. My hands were shaking as I tried to form words. I don't understand. I haven't even been to her house in weeks." The officer nodded. "I just need to ask you a few questions." I invited him inside, still completely in shock. As I sat across from him, answering his questions, my mind raced. I knew Clara had been upset with me. I knew she resented me for setting boundaries. But I never thought she'd go this far. The officer asked if I had been at Clara's house on the day she claimed the money went missing. I hadn't. Luckily, I had an airtight alibi. I had spent the entire day at home, something I could easily prove thanks to security cameras outside my house. When I told the officer this, I saw his expression shift slightly. He was starting to realize that something wasn't adding up. After about 30 minutes of questioning, he finally stood up and said, "Thank you for your time. We'll be following up on this." I barely nodded, my mind still reeling. As soon as he left, I grabbed my phone and called Clara. She answered after the second ring. "What the hell, Clara?" I snapped. "You called the police on me? You told them I stole from you?" I expected her to deny it. To make up some excuse. But she didn't. Instead, she just laughed. Laughed. "Well, maybe this will teach you not to screw me over," she said, her voice dripping with smugness. "Maybe next time, you won't be so selfish." I was shaking. "Are you serious right now?" I hissed. "You actually think lying to the police is some kind of revenge?" She sighed dramatically. "Oh, relax, Maya. Nothing's going to happen to you. I just needed to make a point." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was done. Without another word, I hung up the phone. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just emptiness. I was done trying to reason with her. The next few days were a blur. I had to talk to the police again, but this time, I had evidence. I gave them access to my security camera footage, which clearly showed that I had been at home the entire day Clara claimed the theft happened. I even pulled up my phone's location history as extra proof. It didn't take long before the police realized the truth. Clara had lied. And now, she was the one facing legal trouble. She was charged with filing a false police report, which came with a hefty fine. But honestly, the legal trouble wasn't even the worst part for her. The real fallout came when her husband, David, found out what she had done. And let's just say, he did not take it well. David had always been patient with Clara. Too patient. For years, he had brushed off her entitlement, her selfishness, her inability to take responsibility for anything. But this? This was the final straw. When he found out she had lied to the police and tried to have me arrested over some petty grudge, something in him snapped. I wasn't there when the confrontation happened, but I heard about it from another family member. David lost it. He packed a bag that night and left. Just like that. After years of ignoring the warning signs, he finally saw Clara for who she really was. And she had no one to blame but herself. In the span of a week, Clara lost her husband, her credibility with the family, a lot of money from that fine, any chance of me ever speaking to her again. And, as expected, she blamed me for all of it. She told anyone who would listen that I had ruined her life. That I was the reason David left. That I had somehow manipulated the police into believing her report was fake. As if she hadn't done it to herself. I, on the other hand, was finally starting to feel free. No more babysitting obligations. No more emotional manipulation. No more Clara. A week after David left her, Clara called me. At first, I was tempted to ignore it. But part of me was curious. What could she possibly want now? So, I answered. And guess what? She wasn't calling to apologize. She wasn't calling to take responsibility. She was calling to ask for money. Yes, you read that right. She wanted me to help her pay off the fine she got for filing a false police report against me. I actually laughed. You have got to be joking. She sighed dramatically. Maya, come on. It's just a fine. It's not like I killed anyone. And I'm really struggling right now. That's not my problem, I said, completely done with her nonsense. She huffed. Maya, I know we've had our issues, but I'm still family. And you know Ethan and Sophie need stability right now. Oh. So now she was using her kids to guilt-trip me. Again. I wasn't falling for it. Clara, I love your kids. But you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. And with that, I hung up. She tried calling a few more times, but I ignored every single one. For the first time in years, I had finally learned to say no. And it felt amazing. After everything Clara had done, after the false police report, the manipulation, and the endless guilt-tripping, I thought I had seen the worst of her. But somehow, she still wasn't done. Even after David left her. Even after she was fined for filing a false police report. Even after she became a family outcast because everyone finally saw her true colors. She still tried to pull me back in. She started playing the victim. She told anyone who would listen that I had destroyed her life. That I had turned David against her. That I had ruined her reputation for no reason. It was almost laughable. Because the truth was, Clara had done all of this to herself. I had simply refused to be her doormat anymore. And she couldn't stand that. Even though most of the family had taken my side, there were still a few relatives who felt bad for Clara. They started reaching out to me, asking me to be the bigger person. Clara's been going through a lot. Maybe you should talk to her. She's struggling. Maybe just hear her out. She's still family. Don't you think you should try to work things out? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Work things out? With the woman who literally tried to have me arrested? With the woman who had lied to the police and nearly ruined my life? With the woman who had used her own kids as pawns to manipulate me? Absolutely not. I told them all the same thing. Clara made her choices. Now she has to live with them. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay just to keep the family peace. I was done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. There was only one part of this entire situation that truly broke my heart. I had lost Ethan and Sophie. I hadn't seen them in months. Clara had made it clear that I was no longer welcome in their lives. And that hurt the most. I loved those kids. I had spent years taking care of them, comforting them, making them feel safe and loved. And now, because of their mother's pettiness, they probably thought I had just disappeared. I hated the idea that they might be wondering why their Aunt Maya never came around anymore. That they might think I had abandoned them. But there was nothing I could do. I knew that if I tried to reach out, Clara would just use them as leverage again. So, I had to let them go. And I hoped, I really, truly hoped, that one day, when they were older, they'd understand the truth. A few weeks later, Clara tried one last time to manipulate me. She sent me a long-winded text message, pretending to be remorseful. Clara, Maya, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I just want to say that I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, and I regret how things went down. Can we meet up and talk? I miss you. I stared at my phone. I knew exactly what this was. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. She had burned every bridge, and now that she was alone, she was trying to pull me back in. I thought about responding. I even started typing. But then I stopped. Because I knew that Clara hadn't changed. She wasn't reaching out because she wanted to make things right. She was reaching out because she needed something. So, I did the best thing I could possibly do. I deleted the message. And for the first time in years, I felt peaceful. It's been a few months since all of this happened, and honestly, I'm doing so much better. I've focused on my health, my mental well-being, and my own happiness. My husband and I have grown even closer through all of this. He was my rock when things got bad, and I'm so grateful for him. I've also reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my years of being Clara's personal babysitter. And most importantly, I've finally learned to put myself first. I used to feel so guilty about setting boundaries. I used to feel like I owed people my time and energy, even when it was at my own expense. But not anymore. Clara showed me exactly why it's important to protect your peace. Because some people, they will take everything from you if you let them. I refuse to ever let that happen again. Final thoughts. Clara and I, we're done. For good. She made her choices, and I made mine. And you know what? I have zero regrets. I may have lost her, but I gained something so much better. My freedom. And honestly, I've never been happier. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.